Hi everyone, we're here to talk about the templates used in third weekend in October, the quilt kit that Free Spirit has put together. And today we're going to talk about 4 new different foundation paper pieced components of this quilt. This first one we're going to do is the narrow point foundation, and this particular one is block S9. You can see I'm orienting everything that I write on my foundation paper piece so that it matches how it looks in the grid. Either by writing the letters for the fabric that's going to be used or the names, but to make sure that you have it so that it looks just like that, where the point of the leaf is pointing down towards like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and that you have the bigger piece on top. You're going to then cut pieces of fabric that will generously cover at least 1/4 of an inch around your targeted sewing area. So you want it to, the sides of your scrap of fabric need to cover all of this area in spot number 2. And this is going to be your sewing line. So you want it to extend and cover generously that area. So like that. So you're going to cut pieces that will cover all of your sewing areas, and you're going to sew in numeric order. So you're going to put piece 1 on the front side of your template, and piece 2 is going to go on your template, right sides together. And then you're going to go to the sewing machine and you're going to flip your template over and sew on the dashed line between piece number 1 and 2. And then you'll press that open. And then the next piece to go on is piece number 3. And you want to make sure you only have about 1/4 of an inch extended past your seam allowance, or where you're going to be sewing. This is actually a little generous. I probably should have cut a little more off of that. But that's fine. You can do it after you sew. So then you're going to take piece number 3, the purple guinea flower, and you're going to put right sides together. Make sure that you have it placed so that it will cover all the area that needs to be covered. And then you'll flip your template over, sew on the dashed line, press. And yes, I do go to the iron each time with these seams, so you get a nice flat seam. And then you'll trim along these solid lines outside, on the outside edge of your template, and you will get the piece that is just like what's in the grid. So points going down, big piece here, littler piece there, and that will go up on your design wall. This is the Cafe flannel design wall that I use, and it really is very helpful, especially with this quilt, keeping track of all your pieces. The next one we're going to do is the tri-side foundation, and you're going to, again, cut your pieces so that they'll cover all of the areas in the foundation paper piece. And you start again with piece number 1, which is a harissa. And you'll put that on your template, put piece number 2, right sides together, flip your template, sew on the dotted line, press it open, and then you will trim back your extra fabric so that you only have 1/4 of an inch in the seam allowance and not have all these extra tails. But this is the nice thing about the foundation paper piece. As long as you're covering the area, you'll be fine. And then you can just trim fabric away. The fabric quantities in the kit are quite generous, and you can, I mean, obviously you can't cut things that are a mile too big, but something like this is fine. You'll have plenty of fabric to do all that you need to do with the kit. And then you did piece number 1 and 2. So now you're going to add piece number 3. You're going to flip it over, sew on the dashed line, press it open, and then trim along the outside edge, and you will get your piece like that. Okay, the next one is the Tri-Stem Foundation. This one has 4 pieces in it. And again, the process is the same. We're going to be sewing in numeric order. We're going to make sure we have the right side of the fabric showing on the front right side of the template. And you're going to get piece number 1 and piece number 2, which are pine and bottle shot cottons. And you're going to put them right sides together. Flip your template over, sew on the dashed line, open it up, press, trim your seam allowance, and then you're going to be moving on to piece 3. Some of these you do have to look carefully at, like piece number 3 is right here, and the dashed lines are always our sewing lines, so you can see you're going to be putting a narrow piece of fabric in here. So this again is a generous piece. It more than covers area 3. But you would have your piece number 1 and 2 down, you put your piece 3, flip over, make sure you are looking at the right dashed line to sew on. So it's the one closest to piece number 1 and 2. You're going to flip open, you're going to trim your seam allowance. So when you trim your seam allowance, it's going to be a little bigger than that. You're just going to have a tiny bit of the fabric left, but it's a little bit easier to deal with this 1-inch piece of fabric than if you're cutting really thin strips. But again, you want to make sure that you generously cover area 3. And then you move on to piece number 4 that will cover area 4. Flip it over, sew on the dashed line, and press it open, and then trim, and you get your final piece. Let's go over to the grid, and you can see this is V29, so this guy here, and it looks exactly like it does in the grid. You have 3 different fabrics on the outside with a stem going through the middle. Okay, and then our last one for this video has a few more pieces. This one has 5 pieces, but the process is the same. We get our template, we label it with the fabrics, we start with piece number 1, which is one of my faves, cloisonne purple, and you put that in the area where number 1 is. You get fabric number 2, bottle shot cotton, put them right sides together, flip it over, sew on the dashed line, press it over, and then you're going to be adding piece number 3 to this. So you would fold your fabric back, trim, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then add piece number 3. Again, after that's pressed open, you want to trim so that you have just a 1/4 inch in your seam allowance so that you can add piece number 4, which is this beautiful pimento colored shot cotton. So you'll lay that on its, the area that you're trying to cover. You can kind of double check by just finger press and hold it up to the light to make sure that all of the area you want covered is covered, and then sew again on the dashed line between section 1, 2, 3 to number 4. Press open. Then you add your last piece, which is another piece of bottle shot cotton. Flip over, sew on that dashed line, press it open, and then you end up with this little guy. And if we go over to the grid, you'll see S32. S32 is there. This looks just like what it looks like here. And that's what you're trying to do, putting the fabric on the top of the foundation paper piece and making this piece come to life with all these fabrics. I hope that's helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.